Hi, my name is Daniel Meredith, and I'm a research psychologist. One of the things that I have studied over the course of my career is creativity, both in people's everyday lives and over the course of people's lifespan, how people come up with good ideas. Now, creativity is one of the keys to success. We all know that. And we all have different amounts of creativity, but there are ways that we can test our own creativity and the creativity of the people that maybe you work with or supervise. And we can do this with a simple task which is called divergent thinking, a divergent thinking task. And one of the ways that people study divergent thinking or try to detect the amount of divergent thinking that somebody or a group of people may be able to exhibit is by simply giving them an everyday object. In this case, we're going to think about using a paperclip. Now, a good divergent thinking task that you can do with yourself or a group, you can give this to a group to participate in as a group activity, is to just ask them how many uses they could think of for a simple object like a paperclip and see how many they can list. And this is a good measure of creativity, and it will also help people try to think outside the box and help them be able to generate new ideas and novel ways to use things like an everyday object like a paperclip. We're talking about creativity. One of the things that sometimes comes up is the idea of insight. Now, sometimes we talk about insight as almost like a mystical attribute that we have in our minds. We don't really know where it comes from, and it's actually hard to describe. But psychologists, as they study creativity, psychologists also study insight. Now, just to give a historical kind of anecdote about what insight is, we can talk about Archimedes. Archimedes is kind of looked at as the classic insight moment or aha moment or eureka moment. These are all terms that are used to describe insight. Now, Archimedes was charged or commissioned by the king in Greece to come up with a way to determine whether or not a golden crown had been mixed with other metals. The king wanted to find out if he was cheated. So he got Archimedes to kind of figure out a way to do this without actually destroying the crown. He didn't want to melt the crown down to find out if there were other metals in it, but he wanted Archimedes, a known smart person, to try to figure out a way to do this. So Archimedes was thinking through this problem, and he was running into a wall. He couldn't think of a way, he couldn't think of a solution for this. And his wife told him, hey, just take a break, take a bath. So he jumped into the bathtub, and he noticed that the water rose when he jumped into the bathtub. And he had a eureka moment, an aha moment. The light bulb went off, and he realized that he could probably measure the crown by the displacement of water, and he came up with a formula for mass and the displacement of water. And that's how he determined whether the crown was solid gold or it was mixed with other less expensive metals because of the amount of water that it displaced. Now, psychologists study insight in different ways. They don't have people take baths and come up with all these kinds of different variations on what they should do, but they actually observe people when they're trying to work through problems. Insight problems are different than everyday problems because they don't have a clear step-by-step method. People that are engaged in an insight problem, these often happen when we're in our business, in our lives, and a lot of the most difficult problems in our lives are sort of insight problems where we don't really know what we're supposed to do. We might be lost and we feel like we're just floundering around. We feel like we're just kind of walking through a dark room looking for a doorway, just feeling ourselves through it, and we don't really have any kind of plan or any strategy in order to do this. One of the ways that psychologists study insight in people is by something called a compound remote association problem. And what they'll do here is they'll give people 3 words, like I have here: puppy, letter, and true. And they'll ask people if they can think of one word that can be attached to all 3 of the words they are given to produce 3 new compound words. And in this case, we're looking for love. Puppy love, love letter, and true love. Now, this is a classic example of a psychological metric that's used to observe insight in people. Insight problems are not, as I mentioned, step-by-step sort of problems. People generally feel confused. They don't really know what to do, and then suddenly out of thin air comes the solution. The key to this is to relax our minds, to not overthink it. Just like when we're trying to do divergent thinking, we have to relax our minds. We have to think outside the box in order to come up with all those possible ideas on how we can use something like a paperclip. Another example of if we run through one more example of a insight problem with as we did before with the compound remote association task, we're looking at desk, mountain, and tree. Now that you've done one, you might be a little bit easier to come up with the solution for this one, and we're looking for top. Desktop, mountaintop, and treetop. We can also use rebus puzzles. You might look at this and be confused, but I'm asking you what this represents, and maybe you don't know, maybe you have no idea, maybe you're confused, maybe you immediately realize that this represents top secret, or that this one represents man overboard, or that this one represents crossroads. Now these are just kind of fun little ways to determine your level of insight. Now again, the key to doing this is to let your mind relax. Now you can do these tasks in the workplace, you can do them by yourself. They're great tasks to give to people that are working as a group so they can learn how to deal with unusual problems as a group. They're used in industrial organization, they're used in business psychology, and they're excellent techniques that you can give people as a practice or a practicum or an activity so that they can learn how to snap out of their mindset, how to achieve to achieve solutions to unusual types of problems, and how to work through these problems as a team. Another very classic example of an insight task is the Dunker candlestick problem. Now, this is really fun, and some people are good at this, and some people are not that good at this. But what the task here is, they're given a number of objects, like I have pictured here. A box of thumbtacks, a candlestick, and a book of matches. And they're told that they're supposed to figure out a way to place or to anchor the candle on the wall so that when the candle is lit, it doesn't drip wax all over the place. And some people try to thumbtack the candle to the wall, and that doesn't work, obviously, because the candle breaks apart. Some people try to melt some of the wax and stick it to the wall, and that's obviously not going to work either. It falls right off the wall. The solution that researchers are looking for here is to dump out the box of thumbtacks, to thumbtack the box to the wall, to put the candle in the box as a sort of a platform, and then light the candle. So when the candle wax drips, it drips right into the empty box that's serving as a platform. So these are ways that you can test your own creativity, your own insight, and ways to kind of enhance people's ability to work as teams in the workplace or by yourself if you're stuck with a problem. Just try these little tasks. Try to think of a number of different ways to use a paperclip or a rock or a hammer or any object that has a purpose, and you're trying to think of other purposes for it. Or try to think through something like this, the Dunker candlestick problem. It's going to be easy for you now that you have the solution, but try it with your employees. Try it for people that you work with. Try it for people that you think are working as a team that could use a little bit of practice thinking outside the box. My LinkedIn link is in the episode description, and please contact me if you would like to discuss my consulting or writing services. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be on the lookout for more tips on how to use practical psychology in your everyday life and the business world.